Hello, Mr. Natural here from Mr. Natural's Music School in San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, California. Welcome. We've been doing drills so far. I think there's like 8 drills that we have on this website with odd numbers. We've looked and seen that if it goes from a line to a line or a space to a space, it's an odd number. And I've been drilling you to be able to see those things so quickly with the flashcards that your right brain just goes bap, bap. It's kind of like measuring something and knowing that my thumb is 1 inch wide and that 2 thumbs would be 2 inches. And if I measure this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I say this thing is 5 inches wide. So you have to get to the point where you look at that and say, oh, that's 5 inches, or that thing over there is 6 inches, or that's 10 inches, or that piece of paper is 8 inches wide, until your eyeball can see it. And that really happens in your right brain, not your left brain. It's not a reasonable thing. The other thing with this is that your eyeball or your visual acuity is extremely strong and dominant over the other senses. So what happens is when I look at those odd numbers, those odd intervals, and I see it goes from a line to a line or a space to a space, the first thing I'm thinking is it's even. Line to a line, it's even. Space to space, it's even. And of course it's not. Since we use the number 7 in music, which is an odd number, the number 1 comes in at an odd space and changes the lines to the spaces or the spaces over to the line. This thing keeps shifting back and forth. So you cannot trust your eye. Now in this case, we're going to start looking at even intervals. We're going to look at seconds, fourths, and sixths. And again, if the visual is going from a line to a space or space to a line, it looks odd to us visually, and we want to say odd, but it's not. It's going to be an even number. All these numbers are being done between the number 1 and 1 above. If we go below the number 1, everything shifts around and changes. If 7 is on a line above, it's going to be on a space below. So we'll get to that later, but right now we just want to drill seconds, fourths, and sixths until your eyeball sees something odd and says an even number. And we want to drill it enough with the flashcards and go through the exact same drills we went through with the odds. Later, we can still not put these things together because your visual cortex will still see something that looks even and want to say it's even rather than an odd number. It'll see something odd and want to say it's odd rather than an even number. So later we'll put the cards down side by side, evens and odds. We'll tell you which pile is even and which pile is odd, and then we'll go from there. And as long as your left brain knows which pile is which, you'll find it quite easily. And you have to keep doing this until you can override the visual cortex prejudice. So you can know that when it looks even, it's an odd number. When it looks odd, it's an even number. So let's look at them again and see that with the odd numbers, we discovered there were only 3 sizes. A third had no space in between it, or line. A fifth had 1 line or 1 space in between it, and a seventh had 2 lines or 2 spaces in between it, so they came in small, medium, and large. You'll see that the even numbers do exactly the same thing. They come in small, seconds, in which there's no space between them, fourths, which will have a space or a line between them, and sixes, which will have 2 spaces and 2 lines between them. So let's take a look and see what they look like on the board. If I take and put a number or a note right here on this line, then just above it, right here, will be the next interval, and they're right next to each other with no space in between. This is a 2. So this is from a line to a space. Vice versa, if I put something on a space, a second above that will be on the line. So you can see from the space to the line is a 2. Again, it's a small looking interval. If I want to draw something that goes from a line here to the space up here, I will have a space or a line in between it. And this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, or a fourth. And if I draw from this space up here to that line, that distance is a fourth. If I draw from here to here, from a line to a space, this distance is a sixth. And if I draw from, say, this space up to this line, again, you can see all this space in between. This distance is a sixth. So again, these intervals come in seconds, which are right next to each other. They come in fourths, which have a little bit of room in between them, and they come in large sixes. So by the signs, you can tell whether it's a second, a fourth, or a sixth. So let's look again. From line to space, a second. Space to line, a second. From line to a space with something in between, it's a fourth. From a space to a line with a little in between, it's a fourth. From a space to a line with a lot of two lines in between, this is a sixth. From a line to a space with two spaces in between, this is a sixth. So now we will begin using the flashcards the same way we did before. You look at the flashcards and just say 2, 4, or 6, and I'll give you about 3 seconds to figure it out, and then I'll give you the answer. So on to the next drill.